Hello and welcome to Face Off here on France 24. On the menu this week, it's probably the worst kept secret in France. President François Hollande wants to run for re-election next year. He hasn't said so, but everyone knows it. The problem is that he would like to do so as an incumbent, but more and more people on the left are calling for a primary election to designate their candidate. They're unhappy with his economic policies, but also with his security crackdown. This just as the government's constitutional reform to broaden the state of emergency reaches Parliament at the end of this week. With me on the set to discuss those issues, Jean-Marc Gonin, the Figaro magazine, and Philip Turle with Radio France Internationale. So this week, President Hollande suffered a major blow with the resignation of his Justice Minister, Christiane Taubira. She argued that she was in deep disagreement with a proposal to strip French citizenship from individuals convicted of terrorism. However, there's a deeper issue crystallizing on the presidential election next year, and a growing chorus among socialists want an open primary. Let's take a listen to one of this member of the Socialist Party, Marie-Noëlle Lienemann, who is a senator, and then let's take a listen to the reply of one of François Hollande's closest lieutenants, the defense minister, Jean-Yves Le Drian.
We don't want them to cut short the political debate by saying, he's the candidate, he'll run for a second term because he's the outgoing president.
During this tense period, when we need more economic growth, a reduction in the level of unemployment, more security in the country, well, I don't see the President of the Republic spending more time campaigning and defending his candidacy. No, I cannot see that happening. It is not appropriate.
So, interesting example of how some people on the left, and not only on the far left, are unhappy with François Hollande, and they are probably using this primary issue as a way to say to François Hollande they're unhappy with him.
Yes, they want to change the political line of François Hollande's government and bring it more to the left,
or back to the left.
Or back to the left if it had ever been at the left. But in any case, they try to give a new sort of turn, sort of bend to this line. But the whole discussion seems to be kind of fake because nobody is in a position to run against François Hollande at the primary. Time is getting short. The main contender could be Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who already said he's the head of the left front. Who already said he doesn't want to run for the primary. He might run for the presidential election. This is another issue. But he doesn't want to confront the incumbent president in a primary. And wide and bright, you don't see anybody else coming through who could challenge the president. So the whole thing is just a threat. They say the president is not up to the job, the line is not right. They want to get something from the president, but in the end, the president can't really see this as a real threat.
But Philip Turle, and we'll watch a chart of the popularity of François Hollande while you speak. Just in a nutshell, he benefited from his handling of the terrorist attack back in November. There was a spike in the polls, but he's back to a record low level. Only one quarter of the French have confidence in him. All this to say that this wouldn't happen if the president was popular with the French public and also within his own camp.
Well, if the president had managed to reunite the left and the left was a strong force together to impose the policies that the president had decided, and the bottom line being growth had come back and unemployment had come down, which we talked about many times in this programme, which isn't the case, unfortunately, in France, then François Hollande would have nothing to worry about, and neither would the left. The way things are going now is unemployment is high, growth hasn't come back. The far left doesn't agree with the policies that President Hollande and Prime Minister Manuel Valls are taking, the decisions they're making. They say that it shifted far away from the left-wing platform that President Hollande was elected to office on back in 2012, and they want to shift it back to the left. There are two problems. The first one is that this primary, I don't think is going to happen because, as you said, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is the head of the far left in France, is refusing to take part. I don't see people on the right side of the Socialist Party, like Emmanuel Macron, taking part in a primary.
And the president himself doesn't want it.
But that's even
Most
more
importantly.
unlikely. But there's even like the Greens who would like to, part of the Socialist Party who doesn't want to, another part of the Socialist Party who would like to, the far left who are refusing to take part. So I don't know how they're going to get all these people together. And then you have those in the Socialist Party who say, well, there is no way that President Hollande is going to go back down into the arena to take part in a primary discussion with other members of his own party and from other parties when he is the president of France. So that's a no-go issue. So it looks like it's getting off on a bad foot already.
Right, and François Hollande can probably and will probably use 3 words to possibly ward off any of those attempts. Marine Le Pen.
Yes, that would weaken the left again, and his camp is weak enough. So he will say we need to be united to confront the surge of the National Front and of our leader Marine Le Pen. So that will be the ultimate argument, as you said, to fend off any attempt to divide the left.
Right. That being said, Philip, I'll get you but that's part of the same conversation. In Parliament, there's going to be a discussion about this very controversial constitutional reform, and especially several measures, beefing up the state of emergency and also stripping the citizenship of convicted terrorists. That's creating really a lot of debate within the left and prompted the resignation of the justice minister.
So Christiane Taubira was the last link between the far left, or the traditional left in France, the Socialist Party, and the government. So she's gone now. So we've got a government that is shifting more towards the right, that is disappointing those who elected it on the left back in 2012, which means there's going to be a divide between the 2 different lefts in France, which poses another problem now. Outside the debate on nationality and on the prolongation of the state of emergency in France. And that is, well, if they can't agree, they can't come together, they can't forge a common path for 2012, well, there'll be the risk that there will be maybe 1, President Hollande, maybe 2, someone from within the Socialist Party who doesn't agree with President Hollande, maybe 3, someone from the Greens, maybe even 4, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, all running as candidate in the presidential elections, which means that it will severely weaken the left's chances of even making it through into the second round. And that is something that they haven't managed to overcome yet. Then on top of it, we have this debate on nationality and on revising the French constitution and on prolonging the state of emergency in France. And that's also seriously dividing public opinion.
And do you think, because the government needs a majority, and especially the support from the right, is still very controversial, there's a lot of confusion, but do you think François Hollande will be able to garner enough votes for this constitutional reform?
He will stand by his decision and his projects. And Philip was mentioning public opinion. When you look at the last polls, there's an overwhelming support, not of the president, but of those very measures. When you look at the prolongation of a state of emergency, more than 80%, not only of the conservative voters, but of the socialist voters, are backing this. And even the far left, the left front, you have 65% of their own voters who are backing. So maybe those MPs want to resist, but if they do so, they will have a difficult appointment with their own electorate a few months later, because public opinion is thoroughly behind it. I mean, you can't wipe from the heads what happened in last November. The nation has been shocked, and even if the political class has issues with the measures, the population is standing by.
The left is actually saying the following. They're saying, well, we could get rid of the state of emergency because that's what those who are against it are asking for. There were protests in Paris last weekend and all over France from people saying, well, where are we going with this? What kind of rules is this going to impose on France? What does this mean about protests? What does this mean about arbitrary arrest, keeping people under house arrest and all that kind of thing? It hasn't been sorted out. But the government's saying, well, imagine we do away with the state of emergency and then 2 weeks later there's a terrorist attack. What are they going to say about the measures that we're taking? We can't do it at the moment. It's too early. Let's keep it going until at least after the Euro 2016 Football Championship, which takes place in June in France. So and we'll see maybe after that if we can take away the state of emergency. But we still have very strict measures imposed in France under Vigipirate, which of course will remain in place.
And this left you are mentioning, they didn't even, they organized those demonstrations last weekend. They were failures. I mean, you had like a handful of like 5,000 people in Paris. Is this a massive demonstration? No, even those people, when they want to mobilize, they can mobilize at least 50,000. They had 1/10 of it. It means a lot. It means they are, even in their own ranks, they can't mobilize people, energize people to protest.
So you're expecting that the right, because many of the measures are inspired by the right, will support François Hollande even...
I think the right has no choice with the figures I mentioned. I mean, as a conservative MP, it would be even more dangerous to go publicly against that.
It's a trap that the left has set for François Hollande has set for the right, because the right is going to vote for legislation that itself would have proposed if it had been in office. So then people will say to the right, well, yes, you voted for legislation put forward by the left. And the far-right National Front will also vote in favour of this legislation because it's something else that they've been calling for. So it's a sly move by President Hollande to seek support from the right in France. He thinks that's where he's going to win support for a new bid for the presidency next year. And this is one way of doing it, even if at the same time he's going to cheese off or disappoint those who elected him in 2012. But he says there's not enough support for the far left in France. There's more support for the right and for the far right. We're moving in that direction. And that's where I've got to get my new support base from to win a new term in office in 2017.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll continue to follow those developments here on France 24, and we'll see you next week for a new edition of Face Off.